Listen to me now, because this is how disgrace nearly married destiny. On the morning, Adirondc was expelled from the university for unpaid fees. She was the top student in her class and the poorest soul in the entire faculty. They called her name in front of everyone and said, "Until you pay, do not return." Her books were gathered into a carton like abandoned goods, and the security man watched her as if excellence without money was a crime. She did not cry before them. She carried her carton past students who whispered, "Brilliant, but broke," as though intelligence must kneel before wealth. In our land we say, "A child may be born into a hut, yet carry a king's mind, but the world respects only the hut that shines." She walked out of the gate, and did not know where she would sleep that night. Now hear how destiny turned its head. As she crossed the busy road outside the university, a crowd gathered around a stalled luxury car, and a young man stood beside it arguing into his phone. "I have a meeting in London tomorrow. It was soling. This delay is unacceptable." No one moved to help him, because wealth attracts envy faster than respect. Adirondc recognized him from business magazines left behind in the library. He was Tade Akinwumi, youngest tech billionaire in West Africa, educated in America, celebrated in Europe, son of a man whose name opened doors in 3 continents. His driver was nowhere to be seen, and his guards were delayed in traffic. The crowd watched, amused. She stepped forward. "You are blocking the road and causing more trouble for yourself," she said calmly. "If you push while I steer, we can move it." He looked at her torn sandals and university tee. "You think you can solve this?" "I think I can try." He hesitated, then nodded. They pushed together, while the crowd murmured. Sweat entered his eyes for the first time in years, and she did not complain once. When the car finally rolled to the side, he exhaled sharply. "You saved me from public embarrassment." "You could have saved yourself," she replied. "You only needed humility." He stared at her, surprised that a stranger spoke to him without fear. "What is your name, Adirondc? What do you want in return?" There it was again, that question. Wealth always asks, as if kindness must be purchased. She thought of her expulsion letter folded inside her bag. She thought of her mother in the village, who sold cassava from dawn till night. She thought of sleeping once more in an unfinished building with mosquitoes singing like mockers. "I want nothing," she said, though her stomach tightened. He studied her face. "No one refuses opportunity in this city." "I am not refusing opportunity," she answered. "I am refusing dependency." He laughed softly. "You speak like someone who has choices. I speak like someone who wants to keep them." His phone rang again, urgent. "Meet me at Akinwumi Towers this evening," he said quickly, handing her a card. "You may say you want nothing now, but come." She did not promise. That evening she sat on a wooden bench in the village of her childhood through a video call with her mother. The old woman's face filled the cracked screen. "My daughter, how are your studies?" Adirondc swallowed. "There is small difficulty." "Difficulty is not disgrace," her mother replied, "but dishonor is. In Yoruba teaching, a person may lose money and find it again, but once character is sold, even Orin, the spiritual realm, turns its back until repentance is deep." Adirondc closed her eyes after the call and looked at the card in her hand. Akinwumi Towers stood in the richest part of Lagos, and beyond that tower lay London, New York, and the world she had only read about. Connell, her classmate, found her later that night. "I heard you were expelled," he said bluntly. "Listen, this is your chance. If that billionaire favors you, your life changes. Sometimes you must bend small to rise big," she asked quietly. "And if I bend too far, then you become like everyone else who survives." She did not answer. The next morning she stood before the glass doors of Akinwumi Towers. Security men scanned her from head to toe. Inside, everything shone with power. Tade waited in an office that overlooked the ocean and spoke without greeting. "I investigated you," he said. "Top of your class, no sponsors, no father. Why are you suffering alone?" "Because I do not like debt," she replied. "I can clear your fees today," he said. "Full scholarship, apartment, travel, opportunities abroad. You would assist me in research and strategic planning." She listened carefully. He continued, "In return, You must be loyal to my interests. Absolute loyalty. What does loyalty mean? She asked. It means you stand with me in business decisions, even when they are complicated. Her heart beat heavily. Complicated how? He paused. Profitable. There are profits that build nations, and there are profits that drain them. She understood this as a student of economics. If profit harms others, she said slowly, then loyalty becomes corruption. Iliend Buck. You are bold? No, she said. I am cautious. He stood and walked toward her. You are standing at the door of a different life. Do not let pride lock you out, and do not let wealth lock me in, she replied. Silence filled the office. For the first time in his life, someone did not see him as an escape from struggle, but as a test of it. He felt something move inside him, not desire alone, but challenge. I am not your enemy, he said more quietly. I want to help you. Then help me without buying me. He looked at her as though she had spoken a language forgotten by his world. Now, the question stands before her like a crossroad between village dust and international airports. If she accepts his offer with conditions hidden inside wealth, will she lose herself slowly? If she refuses completely, will poverty crush the very dreams she protects? Tell me, which is more dangerous to sleep hungry with integrity, or to feast with compromise? Adirond did not leave the office when the silence grew heavy. Instead, she lifted her head and spoke first. If I work for you, it will be as a student earning through skill, not as a debtor paying with silence. Tade did not interrupt her, because he was not used to negotiation from someone who had nothing. Remove any hidden loyalty beyond honest labor, she said, and I will accept. He studied her carefully, as though measuring whether integrity could survive inside his world. You drive a hard bargain for someone expelled yesterday, he said at last. His voice carried irritation, but also respect he did not yet want to admit. He opened the document on his tablet and deleted the clause requiring undefined loyalty. You will be paid for your research, and your tuition will be sponsored as an academic grant with no personal obligation. She watched each word change before she nodded. Then, I agree, she said, and signed. The pen did not feel like a chain in her hand. It felt like responsibility. In Yoruba, understanding, when a person accepts help, she also accepts accountability before both I, the visible world, and Orin, the unseen one. She knew wealth could change appetite before it changed character. She promised herself silently that she would not allow comfort to rewrite her values. Within a week, her university reinstated her. Students who once avoided her now smiled too quickly. Kunel pulled her aside. So it is true, he said. You are now connected. I am employed, she corrected. Employment is temporary, he replied. Connection is power. She did not answer him, but she felt the shift around her. Invitations came from classmates who never greeted her before. Lecturers who ignored her raised her name in seminars. Wealth, even borrowed wealth, had begun to speak for her. At Akinwumi Towers, she entered a different rhythm of life. Meetings happened across time zones. London called in the morning, New York by afternoon, Abuja by evening. Tade moved through languages and currencies, as if borders were suggestions. Yet when they worked alone, he listened carefully to her analysis. One afternoon, he placed a file before her. Our company is bidding for a government technology contract in rural states, he explained. Your task is to review the economic projections. She read quickly, then frowned. These numbers assume reduced community oversight, she said. Yes, he replied. That means local leaders will not question fund allocation. It simplifies execution. It removes accountability, she corrected. He leaned forward. You are thinking like a student. I am thinking like a citizen. He watched her carefully. If we do not take the contract, another firm will, and they may do worse. That is not justification for doing wrong, she said quietly. The conversation did not end in agreement. It ended in awareness. For the first time, Tade felt resistance, not from competitors, but from someone within his own strategic circle, and he found that he did not dislike it. Their work sessions grew longer. Sometimes they argued fiercely over projections and ethics. Sometimes they laughed, when cultural misunderstandings appeared during international calls. When he prepared for a conference in London, he asked her to travel as part of the research team. "I have never left Nigeria," she admitted. "Then let the world see you," he replied. In London, the city moved with cold efficiency. Investors asked questions about African markets, with tones that mixed curiosity and superiority. During one private dinner, a foreign partner spoke carelessly. "Emerging economies require flexible ethics," the man said, smiling. "Development is messy." Adarunk answered before Tade. "Development without ethics is exploitation with better branding." The table went silent. Later that night, in the hotel lobby, Tade confronted her gently. "You embarrassed a potential partner." "I defended our continent," she replied. He sighed. "Business is diplomacy, and integrity is not optional." NHE looked at her for a long moment. "Do you know why I asked you to join this trip?" "And to work," she said. "No," he replied softly, "to see if your principles survive pressure." She held his gaze. "Do they disturb me," he admitted. Disturbance began to change into admiration. Admiration began to grow into something deeper. He found himself asking about her village, about her mother's cassava farm, about the nights she studied under streetlights. She found herself asking about his childhood in American boarding schools, about loneliness hidden behind privilege. One evening in London, as they reviewed documents, he said suddenly, "If I asked you to stay by my side beyond work, would you?" She did not pretend not to understand. "Are you asking as my employer or as a man?" "As a man?" She considered carefully. "If I stand beside you, it will not be for wealth." "I know, and if I see you crossing into corruption, I will oppose you." He almost smiled. "You already do." But temptation does not disappear when challenged. It changes shape. Back in Nigeria, the government contract advanced to final approval. Tade's father returned from abroad and called a private meeting. "I hear your assistant questions our strategy," the older man said bluntly. "She is not just an assistant," Tade replied. "She is a distraction," his father corrected. "This contract will multiply our influence across West Africa. Minor irregularities are acceptable." "Minor to whom?" Tade asked. "To those who understand power." The father's eyes hardened. "Do not let affection for a poor girl weaken your ambition." That night, Tade drove alone to the small apartment the company had rented for Ad. He told her everything. "If we proceed as planned," he said, "we secure our expansion. If we restructure with full transparency as you suggest, profits drop and political alliances suffer." "And which option lets you sleep?" she asked. He did not answer immediately. In Yoruba thought, destiny is not only what is written before birth, it is also what is chosen at crossroads. Tade had inherited wealth, but he had not yet chosen the kind of man he would become. She could see the struggle in him now, not as a billionaire, but as a son torn between legacy and conscience. "If I stand with you publicly against your father's strategy," she said slowly, "you may lose more than profit." "I know. And if I stay silent," she continued, "I lose myself." He stepped closer. "I do not want you to lose yourself." "Then do not ask me to." He closed his eyes briefly. "There will be a board vote in 3 days. I must decide whether to follow the established plan or present your revised ethical model. And if you choose the old plan." She held his gaze steadily. He answered quietly, "Then you must decide whether you still belong beside me." Now the love that was forming stood before its first real test. Will he protect profit and risk losing her, or protect principle and challenge his father's empire? And if she forces the issue, will she destroy the very future she helped build? The board meeting approaches, and with it, a decision that will shape not only a company, but 2 hearts. The boardroom was filled before sunrise, and silence carried more weight than any speech. Tade stood at the head of the long table, while directors adjusted their glasses and studied their screens. His father sat opposite him, calm and immovable. Adarunk sat along the side wall, officially only a research analyst, unofficially the conscience in the room. "Today, we finalize the rural technology expansion," the chairman announced. 2 proposals are before us. The first proposal was the original plan-reduced oversight, accelerated deployment, political alliances secured through quiet incentives. The second was the revised ethical framework, drafted by Adirong: full transparency, community accountability, slower rollout, lower projected margins, profit versus principle lay printed in numbers. Tade began speaking. Our expansion will define our legacy across West Africa, he said steadily. We can choose rapid dominance, or we can choose sustainable trust. His father interrupted. Trust does not build infrastructure. Capital does. A murmur moved through the room. Tade continued. Capital without trust collapses. His father's eyes fixed on him. You speak like someone who has forgotten who built this empire. I remember, Tade replied, but I must decide how it grows. The chairman cleared his throat. We will hear arguments. One director leaned forward. The original plan guarantees stronger quarterly returns. Another added, political partnerships are necessary realities. Adirong requested permission to speak. The room shifted, surprised. You may, the chairman allowed cautiously. She rose, without trembling. If communities believe we manipulate their development, resistance will rise, she said clearly. Short-term gain may lead to long-term instability. Transparency protects both reputation and sustainability. A director frowned. Idealism is expensive. Corruption is more expensive, she answered. Tade's father leaned back. You are young, Essa Ito. The world does not reward purity. The world punishes betrayal, she replied. The room fell silent again. Voting devices were distributed. Each director pressed a selection unseen by others. The digital screen counted in real time. Original proposal, 5 votes. Revised ethical model, 4 votes. 1 vote remained Todd's. His father spoke quietly, but firmly. You know what must be done. Tade looked at the screen. Then, he saw not poverty, not ambition, but a mirror of the man he might become. He pressed his vote. The numbers shifted. Revised ethical model, 5. Original proposal, 5. A tie! All eyes turned to the chairman, who held the casting vote. He adjusted his glasses slowly. The company was built on decisive leadership, he said, and decisive leadership requires moral credibility in today's global market. He pressed his choice. Revised ethical model, 6. Original proposal, 5. The decision was sealed. Tade's father stood immediately. You have chosen weakness. He sighed coldly. No, Tade answered. I have chosen endureth. The older man gathered his documents. You will learn that integrity does not shield you from consequences. He walked out without another word. The meeting ended, but victory did not feel like celebration. Some directors whispered dissatisfaction. Political allies began sending cautious messages. Share prices fluctuated before midday. That evening, headlines appeared. Akinwumi Global adopts transparency model in rural expansion. Analysts debated whether the move signaled innovation or naivety. Investors abroad expressed cautious optimism, while certain domestic partners withdrew informal support. In his office, Tade loosened his tie and exhaled heavily. Adirong stood near the window. You won, she said quietly. Did I? He replied. You preserved your conscience and fractured my father's trust. She stepped closer. Trust built on silence is not trust. He looked at her carefully. You have changed the direction of my company. You changed it, she corrected. I only spoke. He studied her face. Do you regret it? No, she said firmly. Do you? He hesitated. I regret the cost. Costs began to appear quickly. A major political figure canceled a scheduled partnership. An international investor delayed funding pending performance review. Tade's father withdrew from daily operations, leaving a visible division within the company. At the university, rumors spread. Some praised Adirong's influence. Others accused her of manipulating Tade for power. Kunal confronted her again. You think you are a hero? He said sharply. But if this company falls, you fall with it. I did not ask for applause, she replied. You asked for a battlefield, he said. Perhaps he was right. Love had moved from private admiration to public consequence. Tate began visiting her apartment more frequently, not as a billionaire displaying generosity, but as a man seeking counsel. One night, he spoke plainly. "My father has begun transferring certain operations abroad without informing me. Is he undermining you?" she asked. "He is protecting what he calls the real business." "And what do you call it?" He paused. "The old way." She looked at him steadily. "If the old way continues in secret, your public integrity becomes performance." He ran his hand across his face. "You push me." Relentlessly. "I push you toward alignment," she said. He stepped closer. "And if alignment destroys what I inherited, then you build what you believe." He searched her expression. "Stay with me," he said quietly, "not only in policy debates. Stay with me in life." She did not answer immediately. In Yoruba teaching, marriage is not only union between two individuals, but between destinies and families. His family now stood divided because of choices she influenced. "If I stay," she said slowly, "I will not be decoration. I would not insult you so, and I will not protect you from consequences of truth." He nodded. "That is why I need you." Their hands touched, not as employer and employee, but as two people stepping into uncertainty. Yet beyond their personal bond, tension gathered. Tate's father was not a man who accepted defeat quietly. Within days, a confidential report leaked to the media suggesting internal disagreement and potential financial instability. Anonymous sources questioned the competence of new advisory influences. Shareholders demanded clarity. At an emergency strategy session, one senior executive spoke bluntly. "This ethical pivot is destabilizing investor confidence." Tate responded firmly. "Integrity is not instability." But doubt began creeping even into his own mind. What if the transition failed? What if communities resisted despite transparency? What if his father was right about the cost of idealism? That night he called Adirondacke late. "Tell me honestly," he said, "if everything collapses, will you still believe we chose correctly?" She answered without hesitation, "Yes. And if we lose everything, then we lose with dignity." Silence stretched between them, not empty but heavy. Yet unseen movements were already in motion. Tate's father scheduled a private shareholders' gathering abroad, excluding his son. Rumors suggested a potential leadership challenge. Now the question deepens beyond profit and policy. Will integrity strengthen the empire through trial, or will ambition reclaim control through division? And if forced to choose between love and legacy once more, who will stand? And who will yield? The shareholders' gathering in Geneva was announced as a routine international review, but everyone inside Akinwumi Global knew it was not routine. Tate received the notice last, forwarded formally instead of personally by his father's office. "Attendance is optional," the message read, though both men understood it was a summons. Adirondacke read the email over his shoulder and said nothing at first. "He is consolidating influence," she said finally. "If major investors lose confidence in you, the board can be restructured." "I know," Tate replied. "And if the board shifts, your ethical reforms can be reversed." He turned to her. "Then you must come with me." She hesitated. "As what?" "As the architect of the policy everyone debates." Geneva did not welcome them with hostility. It welcomed them with polite scrutiny. Investors spoke with controlled smiles and measured language. In private sessions, questions were sharper. One senior partner leaned forward during a closed-door meeting. "Your revised rural strategy reduces short-term return by 8%, he said. "Markets react quickly to perceived weakness." "Integrity is not weakness," Tate answered evenly. "Integrity must be profitable," the investor replied. Adirondacke requested the floor. "Profit built on distrust carries hidden liabilities," she said. "Community resistance, legal exposure, reputational damage, these cost more over time." The investor studied her carefully. "And you are a research strategist?" "Ah," he said slowly. "The influence." Tate's jaw tightened. Later that evening, Tate's father addressed the larger assembly. His voice was calm, authoritative, and persuasive. "Innovation must not become recklessness," he said. "We respect ethical aspirations, but global competition requires flexibility. Several heads nodded. After the session, father and son met privately for the first time since the board vote. The older man did not waste words. "You have allowed sentiment to infiltrate strategy," he said. "I have allowed conscience to guide expansion." Tade, "You confuse morality with leadership, and you confuse dominance with success." The father's gaze sharpened. "That girl has filled your head with theory. She has challenged me to think beyond inheritance." The older man stepped closer. "If investors withdraw tomorrow, thousands of employees suffer. Will your principles feed them? If corruption continues," Tade replied, "millions suffer invisibly." The room fell into heavy silence. Back in Nigeria, rumors intensified. Anonymous articles suggested that Adorank's influence was destabilizing the company. Commentators questioned her background, her education, even her motives. Social media turned her into a symbolsome, called her courageous. Others called her manipulative. Connell sent her a message. "You see, now, power never fights gently." She responded simply, "Truth never retreats quietly." But the pressure was not only external. One evening in Geneva, Tade confronted her in his hotel suite after a tense investor dinner. "Do you understand what is at stake?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "If this fails, my father regains control entirely. Everything we change disappears. Then ensure it does not fail." "You speak as though certainty is guaranteed." "I speak as though compromise is not an option." He paced the room. "Sometimes I wonder whether I am leading a company or defending a philosophy." She stepped toward him. "Leadership without philosophy becomes appetite." He stopped and looked at her, frustration mixing with admiration. "You make everything moral." "Because everything is," she said quietly. He exhaled slowly. "If I lose this battle, I may lose authority in my own house. And if you win by surrendering your values, you lose yourself." He searched her face. "And if I choose survival over idealism?" She met his gaze steadily. "Then I will not stand beside you." The words struck hard, not as threat, but as truth. The next morning, during the final investor session, an unexpected report was presented. It showed early pilot results from the transparent rural rollout already implemented in 2 states. Community engagement had increased local cooperation. Independent audits revealed cost efficiencies from reduced conflict and faster adoption rates. A senior European investor spoke first. "These indicators suggest long-term stability," he said. "Short-term margin reduction may be offset by sustainable growth." Another added, "Global markets are shifting toward accountable governance." The atmosphere shifted slightly. Tade's father remained composed, but his eyes revealed calculation. "Pilot data is preliminary," he said. "Preliminary but promising," the chairman replied. By the end of the gathering, no leadership challenge was initiated. Investor confidence stabilized, though not fully secured. The ethical model would continue under review. On the flight back to Lagos, Tade sat beside Adorank in quiet reflection. "We survived this round," he said. "For now," she answered. He looked at her thoughtfully. "My father will not stop. I do not expect him to." "Does that frighten you?" "No," she said. "But it warns me." Back in Nigeria, a new tension awaited. Tade's father called a family council at their ancestral home in the village, summoning elders and extended relatives. Such councils carried weight beyond corporate law. They invoked tradition, lineage, and communal judgment. When Adorank learned she was invited, she understood the significance. In Yoruba culture, family elders do not merely advise. They evaluate destiny. If they reject her influence, her place beside Tade becomes fragile. At the village gathering, elders sat in a semicircle. The father addressed them. "My son has allowed external influence to redirect our enterprise," he said. "We must ask whether this path honors our name." An elder turned to Adorank. "Daughter, what do you seek from this family?" She answered calmly, "I seek nothing that is not earned." "Do you love him?" another elder asked. "Yes, and if loving him costs you comfort." "I have known discomfort before." Murmurs moved among the elders. The father spoke again. "Love must not weaken legacy." one elder responded slowly. Legacy without righteousness invites decay. Silence followed. The council did not deliver a final verdict that night. Instead, they declared a period of observation. The company would continue its new direction under scrutiny. Tade's leadership would be tested through measurable results, and Adaronk's presence would be judged not by wealth, but by character. As they left the ancestral compound, Tade walked beside her in the dark courtyard. You stood firm, he said. I spoke truth, she replied. He stopped walking. If the next trial demands sacrifice, will you still choose integrity? She answered without hesitation. Yes. But the next trial was already forming. A confidential internal audit had uncovered irregular transactions from divisions still controlled quietly by his father's allies. If exposed publicly, it could vindicate Tade's reforms or destroy the family's reputation entirely. Now, the choice grows sharper. Should Tade reveal corruption within his own lineage to protect the company's moral future? Or should he conceal it to preserve family honor and prevent scandal? And if he must choose between justice and blood, what will love demand? The audit report lay open on Tade's desk long after midnight, and the numbers refused to soften no matter how many times he reread them. Funds allocated for rural infrastructure had been redirected through shell contractors connected to divisions still influenced by his father's loyalists. The sums were not small mistakes. They were deliberate diversions. If exposed, the scandal would stain not only executives, but the Akinwumi name itself. Adaronk stood across from him, her expression steady. The evidence is clear, she said. It implicates people who have served my family for decades, he replied. It implicates injustice, she corrected. He closed the file slowly. If I go public, markets panic. If I stay silent, I betray everything we argued for. And if you delay, she asked, then I become complicit. The word hung between them like judgment. The next morning, Tade requested a private meeting with his father at the Lagos headquarters. The older man entered without greeting and sat down as though he already knew the subject. You found it, he said. Yes, Tade answered. The father folded his hands calmly. Irregularities occur in complex systems. These are not irregularities, Tade replied. They are diversions. The older man did not deny it. Those funds maintained political stability during our transition. You think investors care about morality more than continuity? They care about credibility, Tade said. They care about profit, his father corrected sharply. Tade leaned forward. If this becomes public through regulators or media, we lose control entirely. We must disclose voluntarily and restructure. And humiliate ourselves, the father demanded. Protect the company. Tade unsweared. The older man's voice hardened. You protect a theory? I protect a dynasty. A dynasty built on concealed theft cannot endure, Tade said firmly. Silence fell heavy. The father stood slowly. If you expose this, you break more than business. You break blood. Tade did not lower his gaze. If I hide it, I break myself. The confrontation did not end in agreement. It ended in fracture. Outside the office, rumors were already spreading. Regulatory agencies had begun informal inquiries after minor discrepancies surfaced in public filings. Journalists sensed tension within the corporation. Time was shrinking. That evening, Adaronk met Tade at her apartment. He looked exhausted, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of decision. He warned me, Tade said quietly. He said exposure would destroy our standing in political circles. And what did you answer? She asked. That silence would destroy my integrity. She stepped closer. Then the answer is already forming. He searched her face. Do you understand what will follow? Investigations? Headlines? Possibly arrests among senior staff. My father may never forgive me. In Yoruba teaching, she said carefully, a child honors his father not by repeating his errors, but by correcting them. He exhaled slowly. If I proceed, you will be attacked publicly. They will say you manipulated me. They already say it, she replied. And if our relationship becomes the center of scandal, then it will survive truth or it will not deserve to. Her calmness steadied him more than any argument. The next day, Tade called an emergency board meeting. Directors arrived tense, aware that something serious was unfolding. The audit findings were presented in full detail, without concealment. Gasps broke the formal silence. One director spoke sharply. Why was this not discovered earlier? It was concealed within legacy divisions, Tade answered. And you are disclosing voluntarily? Another asked. Yes. A pause followed. This will damage us, the senior member warned. It will cleanse us, Tade replied. The vote to initiate internal restructuring and self-report to regulators passed narrowly. The decision triggered immediate public disclosure. Within Or's news outlets erupted. Headlines questioned governance failures. Commentators debated whether Tade was courageous or reckless. Share prices dipped sharply before stabilizing under statements of corrective action. At the ancestral home, elders gathered again. Tade's father did not attend the corporate announcement, but he watched it broadcast live. When it ended, he turned off the screen slowly. You have chosen your path, he said when Tade visited that evening. Yes, Tade replied. You exposed men who protected this family for years. I exposed actions that endangered it. The older man's voice was quieter now. Not angry, but wounded. You believe righteousness justifies betrayal. I believe silence would have been betrayal. Tade sweated. Long silence stretched between them. At last, the father said, if the company survives this storm, it will not be because of me. It will survive because we corrected it, Tade said carefully. The father did not respond. Meanwhile, Adironk faced her own trial. At the university, students debated her role openly. Some admired her courage. Others accused her of orchestrating corporate rebellion for personal gain. Kunal confronted her one last time. You could have lived comfortably without shaking the foundation, he said. I would not have lived comfortably inside myself, she replied. And if he loses everything, then we rebuild honestly. Days turned into tense weeks. Regulators launched formal investigations, but because the company had self-reported and initiated reforms, penalties were reduced. International investors publicly commended the transparency. Gradually, market confidence began to recover. One evening, as they reviewed progress reports, Tade looked at Adironk with new clarity. I once thought wealth gave me power, he said. Now I see that integrity gives me authority. She smiled faintly. Authority cannot be inherited. He reached for her hand. When this stabilizes, I want to make our partnership permanent. She held his gaze. Marriage? Yes. She did not answer immediately. Love had grown through struggle. But she knew the final test was not corporate recovery. It was whether his commitment to integrity would remain when crisis faded. Before I answer, she said softly, tell me this. If prosperity returns fully and pressure disappears, will you still choose this path? He did not hesitate. Yes, but destiny often waits until calm returns before presenting the final temptation. A foreign conglomerate had quietly offered to acquire a controlling share of Akanwumi Global at a premium valuation on one condition. Certain transparency policies must be relaxed to align with global flexibility. The offer promised extraordinary personal wealth for Tade, beyond even his current standing. It also promised less interference from regulators and quicker expansion abroad. Now, after surviving scandal through integrity, another temptation fewer constraints and global dominance. If ER accepts, he secures unimaginable fortune. If he refuses, he commits permanently to a harder road. And if he chooses wrongly after all they endured, what becomes of their love? The acquisition proposal arrived formally 2 weeks after regulatory tensions eased, and its numbers were beyond anything Tade had previously imagined. The foreign conglomerate promised global expansion, protection from political interference, and personal compensation that would place him among the wealthiest young executives in the world. In return, certain operational flexibilities would replace the strict transparency model he had fought to establish. The document was clear without being explicit. Profit would move faster if scrutiny moved slower. Tade read the proposal alone first. He felt no immediate excitement, only recognition. Temptation rarely returns as scandal. It returns as opportunity. This offer did not demand public corruption, only quiet adjustment. That evening he drove to Adarank's apartment without security, without announcement. She opened the door and saw the weight in his expression before he spoke. "Another crossroads," she said calmly. "Yes," he answered. They sat facing each other at her small table where so many earlier decisions had been debated. He explained the acquisition in detailed equity structures, expansion forecasts, projected personal gain. He did not exaggerate. He did not minimize. "And the condition?" she asked. "Relaxed transparency frameworks," he said. "Not elimination, just flexibility." She held his gaze steadily. "Flexibility for whom? For strategic advantage? For whom?" she repeated. "For investors," he said quietly, "and for you." He hesitated. In Yoruba understanding, when wealth grows too quickly, elders ask whether character has grown at the same pace. Adarank did not accuse him. "Say, White did." "If I accept," he said slowly, "the company becomes untouchable globally. My father's generation will call it genius. We secure influence beyond Nigeria, beyond Africa, and the reforms you fought for." She asked. "They would remain in principle," he said carefully, "but weakened in practice." Silence settled between them. "Do you remember," she said, "the day I signed your first agreement? I said I would not protect you from consequences of truth." "I remember. If you accept this, you will not face immediate scandal. You will face gradual compromise." He stood and walked toward the window. "Why must the hardest path always be the moral one?" "Because it costs more," she answered. He turned back to her. "Do you think I am tempted?" "Yes," she said, without cruelty. "And does that frighten you?" "It tests you." He returned to the table and sat down. "If I refuse, competitors expand faster. If I accept, I secure unmatched leverage." "And your integrity?" she asked. He closed his eyes briefly. "Intact, but stretched." She leaned forward. "Integrity that stretches too often begins to thin." The words were not dramatic. They were measured. He looked at her with vulnerability he had never shown publicly. "If I refuse this offer, I choose a slower, harder path permanently. And if you accept?" she asked. "I choose dominance. And what kind of man dominates without restraint?" she said quietly. He did not answer. The next morning, he met with his father at the ancestral home. The older man had already reviewed the proposal. "This is the opportunity I once hoped you would seize without hesitation," his father said. "And now?" Tade asked. "Now I observe whether your convictions survive comfort." Tade studied him carefully. "You support the acquisition. I support strength," the father replied. "Global alliances protect legacy, and the relaxed policies, necessary adaptation." Tade nodded slowly. "If I refuse, will you consider me foolish?" The father paused longer than expected. "I will consider you consistent." That answer carried more weight than approval. At the final executive meeting with representatives of the foreign conglomerate, contracts were ready for preliminary endorsement. Legal advisors reviewed clauses. Financial analysts projected exponential growth. The lead representative spoke confidently. "This partnership positions Akinwumi Global as an international force. Transparency remains a value, but operational discretion ensures competitiveness." Tade listened without interruption. "Do we have your agreement in principle?" the representative asked. All eyes turned toward him. He remembered the university gate where Adarank had been expelled. He remembered the boardroom vote that divided blood. He remembered the night he chose disclosure over concealment. None of those moments had offered comfort, yet each had strengthened him. He stood. "I appreciate the offer," he began, "but our recent reforms are not negotiable." A pause. "We will pursue global expansion," he continued, "without diluting accountability." The representative's expression shifted. "Our terms are standard." "Then we are not aligned," Tade replied. The room grew tense. "You are declining extraordinary value," the representative warned. "I am preserving earned trust." Tade unsweated. The meeting ended without agreement. News spread quickly within executive circles. Some praised his resolve. Others called it strategic arrogance. Share prices fluctuated briefly, then stabilized as markets adjusted expectations. That evening, Tade went again to the ancestral home. His father was seated outside, watching quietly. "You refused," the older man said. "Yes." The father nodded once. "You have chosen your kind of strength." There was no embrace, but there was no hostility either. Something unspoken had shifted respect, not based on obedience, but on conviction. Later, under the same roof, elders gathered informally. One spoke slowly. "Wealth tests character more fiercely than poverty," he said. "You have faced both." Tade bowed his head slightly. "I am still learning." The elder turned to Adirond, who had been invited formally this time. "Daughter, do you still stand with him?" She answered clearly, "Yes." "And you, son?" the elder asked Tade. "Do you choose her without condition?" "I choose her," he said, "not because she strengthens my image, but because she strengthens my conscience." The elder nodded. "Then let your union reflect that." Months later, their wedding joined village tradition with global presence. Investors attended beside farmers. University students stood beside international partners. The ceremony did not celebrate wealth. It celebrated endurance. When Adirond addressed a small gathering of young students afterward, she spoke simply. "Opportunity will come dressed as rescue," she said. "Examine its conditions," Tade added. "Power without integrity is loud but unstable." Their company continued to grow, slower than some rivals, but steadier. Community partnerships deepened trust across rural states. International collaborations emerged that respected their governance model rather than diluted it. Temptation did not vanish from their lives. It never does. But each time it appeared, they recognized its voice more quickly. For in the end, the greatest wealth they secured was not acquisition, not valuation, not dominance. It was alignment between love and integrity.